Hello ghosties and ghoulies, welcome back to the channel. It's that time of month again. It is the beginning of November, so we are going to do your tarot for November. And it's a pick-a-pile tarot, so again, you're going to focus on a color of candle that draws your attention the most, and we have a yellow candle, a blue candle, and a lavender candle. And I already have piles designated for each candle, so when you are drawn to a particular color, that will be your reading, and there will be a timestamp down below that you can skip right to your reading. You don't have to watch the whole video that way. Of course, if you're drawn to more than one pile, you certainly can listen to both, or all if you'd like. So I'm going to move the camera in and let you kind of get a sense of what you're drawn to as far as the color of the candle, the color of the flame, and then we're going to begin, okay? So we'll get right to it. Okay, so as you can see, there are 3 candles. Just take a few minutes, and if you need to stop the video in order to kind of meditate, take a couple of deep breaths, focus your intention, and then you can see which of these candles draws your attention the most. When you have selected that one, of course there'll be a timestamp, and you will get right to the readings then. So we have a yellow candle, a blue candle, and a lavender candle. So just stop the video if you need to, take 30 seconds, as long as you like actually, and focus your intention. And we'll get started. Okay, so this reading is for anyone who identified with the yellow candle. So this will be your reading for the month of November, and if it's helpful, please let me know. Drop a comment and let me know how it goes, or if you require any extra clarity on anything that I'm about to read. So we're going to just set the candle aside for a moment. Okay, right away you have some pretty powerful cards coming up. You have Judgment and the Devil. I know this looks like a really evil card. It isn't really. What it is about bending to the more material desires or mundane desires, and holding those things higher than your spiritual pursuits or your intellectual pursuits. And there's a feeling of kind of leaving behind some of those spiritual and intellectual pursuits in order to kind of chase more of the mundane and more of the material world. And the Judgment is a rebirth, and it's a rebirth into more of your hedonistic side, I would say, considering that the Devil comes up so prominently in it. Judgment is about judgment, but it is more so in this reading about being reborn into another way of being. So if you have been more practiced in a spiritual realm, or thinking of things on more intellectual level, you're throughout the month of November, you're going to find that you're a little bit more in the material world and a little bit more bending to your body desires. So maybe eating a little bit more than you should, or drinking a little bit more than you should. But those kinds of things, like the more hedonistic pleasures of the world. So that's something to be cautious of. Okay. Part of why that's happening is that you've had a lot of self-restraint over the last while. I feel like you've been working hard. Perhaps you were working and commuting. There feels like a lot of movement and motion around this as well. So there's a feeling of being in multiple places, and a feeling of having, I hazard to say, travel in this particular time in the world. Because of the pandemic. I don't know why, but that feeling is coming up. So it may be something more commuting, or moving for a new job, or something like that. But it's a sense of a lot of self-restraint around it, and the feeling of needing to break out of those restraints. So it may be that it could have to do with work, but it also could have to do with things like trying to get your house in order, and being very strict in your diet and very strict in your habits, and the feeling of having a lot of restraint around you, and the feeling of there's definitely a feeling of wanting to break out of a rut and break out of that, and that could be where the hedonistic aspects of it come in. is a reaction to so much restraint. So you've kind of pushed yourself into a corner as far as restraint goes, and now you're going to eat the whole cake instead of having one slice. Do you know what I mean by that? The Page of Swords that's okay. This is all right now. This is what you need to do right now. There is something new coming. There is a rebirth for you, and you will come through this kind of period of weakness, where you bend to your lower desires. You will come through that. You're just not ready to come through that yet. And that's what the Page of Swords is telling me in its reverse position. Okay, you do have new energy and wisdom moving in. You've been carrying a lot of burdens that aren't yours. There's a feeling of having been overburdened, and a feeling on an intellectual level. So something's really played with your mind in a lot of ways. The Knight of Swords is about energy around education and around learnedness and around mental acuity and mental stability, mental intellectualism. So there's a feeling like you've studied really hard. There's a feeling of having studied really hard around this. This is actually really positive energy in your life, and you want to keep it, but you're breaking yourself by kind of pushing yourself too hard and having too much restraint around it. And there is a feeling of being overburdened, and not only by yourself, by people around you. So there may be someone around you that you're helping on an intellectual level, and you're feeling like you're not just helping, you're kind of carrying their workload. And that is something that you need to pay attention to, because that is part of what's leading you into this I don't care anymore, I'm going to do whatever I want place, which is where the devil comes in. Okay, yeah, you're a very kind person, but you do shoulder too many burdens for things, and this is where your reaction is coming in. To helping and to being this person who is carrying the load for other people. You do that out of kindness, and you do that because you know you're a strong person. However, you have reached a line for yourself in this reading where you can no longer carry anybody else's burdens, and they're going to have to start to either carry them themselves or lay them down. And that's up to them. That's not up to you to decide. That is up to them to decide. If they can't handle the situation they're in, they need to make the changes in order to make changes positive for themselves. But you can't do it for them, and you can only carry your own burden. And that's really what this card is telling me, that you have a very strong story going into November, and the story is about boundary setting. The story is about realizing that you're very strong, and you are a very, very strong person. That is very, very clear. But if you want to maintain some kind of equilibrium in yourself where you don't fall into bad habits and you don't bend to your lower self, which is what the devil is about, then you need to be able to set boundaries for people. And that's going to be key for November. I would say that's a huge watchword for you for November. Set boundaries, set clear boundaries so that you don't end up being your own worst enemy. So I'm going to just read you your Tiki Ash card, Inspiration. The river of all-knowing allows every possibility to be open to you. Allow yourself to tap into this vastness. Be inspired by the beauty that surrounds you. Be inspired to open yourself to the riches of the world. In any moment, you can allow inspirational thinking to set you free. Which moment will you choose? So, you can only have your inspired self, and you can only be inspired and have all the things that are coming to you in the world through inspiration if you set boundaries for other people. And if you have to realize that before you come to that breaking point where you bend and you break and you end up in your lower vibration where bad things happen. This is where addiction happens. This is where overeating happens. This is where lashing out and in anger happens. So this is very, very important for you this month. And if you need clarity and you want to drop me a comment, then please do, and I'll do what I can to expand on this for you if you'd like. If it's if it's resonating with you. I don't see November as being a terrible month for you, but it's very, very, very important for you to set boundaries. Okay, so that's your reading, and I'm going to move on. All the bright blessings to the yellow flame people. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the blue flame people and have some interesting vibration around this, and we'll see if it pours into the reading, and because I am picking up something quite strongly for you. So I'm just going to set that a little bit to the side there. Yeah. Okay. The Wheel of Fortune is turning for you, and it feels like it's turning in a negative way. You've been up for a while. It's feeling like your vibration has been very high, your energy has been very high, you've been learning a lot, there's an educational component in it. There is being more open to messages in the universe, and more open to experience. The Wheel of Fortune always turns, and you have been on a real up cycle. It is feeling like going into November, you might be edging into the downside of the cycle. And the reason I say that is because of this card. And this card, it looks terrible, it's not terrible. I always have to explain, this isn't a murder. Even though there's this guy who's like stabbed with daggers, it's not a murder. What it is about getting through a period of pain. So there's a feeling of having to go through a lower cycle where you are going to experience physical and emotional pain. Illness, possibly, but it feels more like, it does feel like there's maybe some illness going on in there too. The thing that you have to realize is that this is not the end of this card. You have to look past the daggers, past the corpse, and look at the new beginning, because there is a beautiful new dawn when you look through the card into what's in the future. So just know that you're going into a low point, and save your energy. Be easy on yourself, be very kind to yourself during this time, because you need to understand that you will be coming through the other side of this. And on the other side of this is the upcycle again, and is the new beginning, is the new dawn. So you have to hang on for that. Yeah, you have a period of destruction happening, and it's necessary destruction. The Tower in its upright format is about tearing things down, but it's tearing things down to make them better. It's the same way if you lift weights, you actually damage your muscle. You damage the little fibers, but then the muscle, when it repairs itself, becomes stronger. And that's what the Tower is really about. It's a necessary destruction so that you can build from a new foundation and build from a stronger place with stronger materials and with stronger sense of yourself and things around you. So this destructive period that you're going through, it's really necessary. It's painful, but it's necessary, and it's not to be feared, because there is a new dawn on the other end of it. Yeah, you have passage away from problems, and it doesn't feel like that right now, and it may not feel like that for a while. It feels like November is going to be a period of trying to move through difficulties in your life, and trying to move through this destruction. The best way to move through this destruction is to accept this destruction for what it is and its necessary nature in your life. But you're feeling a little stuck. You'll be feeling a little stuck in November, but realize that there is a new beginning. You will come through the other side. There is passage to the other side, to the new beginning. You just have to recognize that there is. And it's not going to feel fair. You have a lot of feelings of unfairness around this, like it's already something that you dealt with. There was a feeling of having some completion had already happened here, and having to go back and tear things down again and start new. There's a feeling of that's really not fair. And to a certain extent, it is true that it's not fair, because there is an energy that is leaving your life that has taken energy from you and taken part of you, and it is a negative energy. But it's good that it's moving out, and this card is moving out. The downside is that you have to go through the pain of letting go of this person or this situation. There is a Knight of Swords. Knight of Swords is usually a young male energy, but there is a sense of negativity around this person, and negativity around situations that involve a person like this. Now, this isn't going to be for every single person who chose the blue flame. Some of this stuff is very general. This is in particular to somebody who's going to be picking this up as a reading. And you have a male energy that's leaving your life, and there's a lot of negativity around this person. This is a person who speaks very sharply. This is a person who's very critical. This is a person who has a very nasty side to themselves, and they don't always watch how they say things. This is good that this energy is actually moving out, because you don't want that, and you don't need this kind of energy in your life. You need positivity in your life, and you need to hang on to the fact that there is positivity still there. So there's somebody going through a very destructive relationship that's leaving. Yeah, balance. Whoever this was and whatever this situation. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a relationship situation, like a love relationship situation. This can be a situation with a parent, a child, someone in your family, even a boss or a coworker, but it's somebody who's hypercritical. This Knight of Swords is someone who's very hypercritical. Now, this is specific to possibly a couple of people for the reading. Otherwise, I would say on a general front, this is negative energy that's moving out, and your own self-critical thought that's moving out. And that's something that you have to move out in order to get to the next part of your life. And that's where balance comes in. Be balanced in everything that you say and do. Be aware of moon energy. You're very connected. There's someone who's reading this is, and actually I'm just feeling like for the blue flame people, this is what this is coming from, this energy that I was talking about at the beginning of the reading. There's a huge moon energy aspect to this, and that can mean a couple of things. It can mean that you are in a period of cycles where you're cycling up and you're cycling down, which would make sense when I look at the Wheel of Fortune that was at the beginning of the reading. You're cycling up and down in your life, and sometimes it feels like a roller coaster, and that is very cyclical, much like the moon is cyclical. But once you start to recognize that you are cyclical, you can work with those cycles more effectively and actually manage your life a lot better. And that's your hypercriticalness right there, because you can be very, very hypercritical. There is an actual real world situation though with someone who's reading this is with this negative person. Let them go, because you don't need them. And let your self-critical nature go, because you don't need it either. And the reason I'm saying that is the Queen of Cups is your ultimate card, and the Queen of Cups is a wonderful card. The Queen of Cups is somebody who really has it together. They are a big dreamer, but they not only just dream about doing things and dream about having their life be a certain way, they actually have the power to make those dreams reality. And you have that power, especially when you start to work with your own cyclical nature and know when you're up and when you're down, and when to let go of your own self-critical voice and people around you that are critical of you. You don't need those people in your life. You have everything you need to make your dreams come true. That is what the Queen of Cups is about. She's also very emotional, so embrace your emotion, and part of that is cyclical too. So knowing your cycles is going to be very important over November, and letting go of your negative self-talk and negative people around you. So I hope that helps. I'm going to read your Tikashi card. Magic. Unexplained, fascinating turns of events. Expect the unexpected. You have wondered and you have let go. Magic is in the air. Don't fall under the spell of your own ego. Often what appears to be real is an illusion. Allow the spellbinding passion of your spirit to guide your life with enchantment. Now, don't fall under the spell of your own ego. Ego, a lot of people think ego is thinking that you're wonderful all the time, and that you have a very high opinion of yourself. That's not always what ego is. Ego can also be that self-defeating voice and that self-critical voice, because that's the bad side of the ego. That's the part that says, I should be better, I should be this, I should be that. Well, why should you? really. Why should you? Why can't you just be what you are? Be who you are. Try to be the best you can. Accept yourself for who you are. But always expecting yourself to be better is part of destructive ego. So be aware of that. Embrace magic. Embrace your cycles. And let go of that negative self-talk, because it's really prevalent in this reading. So we move on. All the bright blessings to the blue flame people. Okay, my lavender flame people. I love this lavender candle. There's something about it that I find very peaceful. I feel like I need to say that because I think even before I go into the reading, there's a sense of peace around the candle. So I have a feeling there might be something going on in this reading that tributes that. Okay. All right. Part of it is taking a break and pulling away. You're going to find that you're going to need to be more isolated and more insular and a little bit more withdrawn from the world. There is a sense of endings and acceptance of endings around you. That's where the peace comes in. There's a sense of peace around this card as well. There's a sense of happy childhood. There's a sense of connection to childhood. And gifts from childhood. Now, gifts from childhood doesn't necessarily mean that you had, a Partridge Family upbringing where everything was perfect all the time, and all your problems were solved in 30 minutes. It can mean that you learned to be strong in your childhood. It can mean that you learned how to deal with certain kinds of people in your childhood. It can mean the challenges from your childhood have led you to a place where you know when you need to withdraw and when you need to make peace with things not being how you want them to, and withdraw, reset, take some time for yourself, go into hibernation, and that is part of the reading. But there is a sense of childlike enjoyment and gifts from childhood and good connections in childhood. There may be even some family that you haven't seen for a while. For some of my lavender flame people, who you might be seeing your sisters and brothers, you might be seeing cousins and things that people you haven't seen since childhood, or you have a strong childhood connection to over the next month. So this is good, and considering we're in a pandemic, that is actually a pretty big thing. Oh, okay. Page of Cups is messages. There's messages around fertility. So for some of my blue flame people, lavender flame people, you may be finding that you are having, oh, that's very interesting. Messages around birth, messages around pregnancy and birth and fertility. There is a strange reaction happening here, though. The Queen of Swords reversed is somebody who's is withdrawn and very much in themselves. And there's always a sense in her reverse position, there's always a sense of loneliness around this person. So if this is you, and it may be because you've withdrawn, which is what this card is about. It's about drawing in. And there is a sense of feeling lonely. There's a sense of missing childhood. And there's maybe a sense of longing for your clock might be ticking if you're a lady in that age group. But there's a sense of wanting childlike things, wanting children, essentially. I'm trying to say it without saying it, but there's a sense of longing around fertility. Okay. On a more general note, I would say, because this is true for some of my lavender flame people, it's not true for everybody. And so if you've chosen the lavender flame and you don't want to have children and that's not for you, this can be a desire to return to more childlike innocence and a desire to start something new and to have new journeys and to create something new. So your creative drive may be the driving feature of that. These readings are a little bit difficult because they're not for one person, so that can be very distracting when I'm getting a very strong energy telling me a specific thing for specific people. So that can make them a little bit muddled. But if you accept that, you can accept that if there's a sense of withdrawing and not being as creative as you want it to be, not creating, which is, giving birth is the ultimate in creating. So this is where this energy can be as well. There is a sense of having failed at it before, and possibly in your creative pursuits as an overall reading for lavenders. You feel there's a feeling of not having the triumph, or not having it be what you wanted it to be. So there's a feeling of failure around you, and that you are feeling that way. Not that anybody else is looking at you that way, because they're not. Nobody's thinking about you. I promise you. Not in those terms. Everybody's more worried about the way they screwed up, not before they look at anybody else. All I can say about this card is that you never truly fail as long as you continue to try. And that can be very, very hard. There is a sense of having something around you, more traditional, something about more traditional roles and more traditional ways of being in the world, which also links into having children and being married and that kind of thing. There's a sense of around that. This is a very strange back and forth reading that I'm getting, because I think that there's multiple things coming through for multiple people. Tradition can be great, and it can pull you out of a slump a lot. But there is also a feeling of possibly having withdrawn from some part of your tradition. So you may have done something in the past that gave you peace, because peace was a word that came to me, and with the lavender candle. Whatever this is, it's disturbing your peace. And I have a feeling like you've broken from your spirituality, or broken from something that used to give you, something traditional that used to give you peace. And now there's a feeling of withdrawal and sadness and being alone, and not triumphing, not having what you want. Promise you this is not going to last. These things never last. Exactly. So part of it, a big part of it, is you need to stop withdrawing. Because withdrawal and being alone and separating yourself from things, from your own past, from your friends, from your family, from your traditions, from your anything you can imagine that you could separate yourself from, you've pulled away. And the separation, this isn't good for you. This may be part of what's happening in November. It's okay. It's okay. You can do that. It's not the healthiest way to deal with your sense of loss and your sense of isolation, or your sense of failure. But if you need to go away for a while and lick your wounds, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You deal with what you need to deal with in your own way. Know that when you are done doing that, there are new opportunities for you. The world comes up. The world is a massive card, and the world is all about how everything rushes in to help you. The world is about helpers. The world is about being out in the world and being part of the world, in and of it, and having resources and people around you and strength around you in order to help you start to achieve some of the things that you want to do. Sometimes we can't do everything we want to do without help, and it's ask for help. Asking for help is, probably one of the wisest things you can do when you get stuck, is to ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help. And sometimes you require a leap of faith. And there is a feeling, the Fool in this aspect and in this reading is about taking leaps of faith. Take a leap of faith in anything that you're doing. And this actually goes across the board for any reading, but leaps of faith can be wonderful things. They can teach you, even if you land wrong, even if you fall on your arse, you are going to learn something from it. And in this case, the Fool is in its upright position, which means that you're approaching something with a joyous heart, and you're approaching something with the innocence of a fool. And that's good, because sometimes when you have all the knowledge and you think you're wise about something, you are not brave enough to take the leaps of faith that you need to take. Leaps of faith are watchword for this November. When you see opportunities coming to you, don't run away from them. Don't self-isolate. Don't put yourself in the grave before you're there. I mean, you know, you still, even if you've had failures, you still have the world around you, and as long as you are in the world, you're not done. You never fail until you decide you're done, and you're not done. You're not anywhere near done, and that includes people out there who might be thinking about getting pregnant, or might be thinking about having children and have not been successful at it yet, or have fear around it. You're not done, okay? And until you are, you're not. So that's what I can say about that. But yeah, definitely take some leaps of faith this month. Allow the world to come in and help you, and don't self-isolate. That can be a really negative thing for your mental health and your physical health. So that is your reading for November. I'm going to read your card. Risk. Risk. You can't make this stuff up. Risk being yourself. Risk having fun. Risk loving. Risk living. Life is full of risks. Nothing is guaranteed. Risks are easy when you trust yourself and flow. But do not take physical risks at this time. And I would agree with that. With the Fool in your house, I would say don't leap off any actual cliffs. Okay? Don't be doing that. We don't want any of that. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Give a new idea a go. Take a chance on something new. Change your routine and be different. And that really goes to what I was saying about not self-isolating, not keeping yourself in the same old rut, okay? Just because you had a situation that you failed at, or because something didn't work out the way you planned it. Take some risks. Take some leaps of faith. That's what risks are, okay? And allow the world to come in and help you. So that's your reading for the month of November. Brightest blessings on my lavender flame people. So those are your readings for November. I hope that helped you. I hope that they gave you some clarity on maybe something you were worried about or thinking about. If they did, or if you'd like to, please leave a comment down below, and I will respond. And I read all of them. If this did help you, I would love to know what your experience of it has been. In the meantime, thank you for joining me on the channel, and I love you for being here. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night, because they're there in the light too.